Okay, we're live.
Well, welcome everyone. Bienvenidos, bonjour, and so glad to have you here for Cultivating Voices live poetry to brighten your winter or summer day evening for our new books showcase wherever you are joining us from in the world as we continue to celebrate Black History Month and to feature poets whose books have come out during the pandemic. I'm your host, Sandy Yannone, and I'm the author of Boats for Women from Salmon Poetry. And again, um, it's my real pleasure, and I'm filled with gratitude that you have chosen to join me and our fabulous poets today. And I'm with you from Old Saybrook, Connecticut. And thanks to all of you in our Zoom poetry studio watching live, and those watching live from Facebook, hello. And today it is my absolute pleasure to welcome four poets whose poetic journeys will take us many places geographically, sociopolitically, and psychologically today. I'm truly looking forward to the readings today from Marcella and Colleen, Dawad, and Lauren. Well, before I introduce today's poets, a little bit about Cultivating Voices live poetry, which, as I mentioned, began at the early stages of the pandemic at the end of March 2020. So we're coming close to our 1 year anniversary. We did this in response to all those shutdowns of in-person venues. And now we've developed into an international, intersectional, intergenerational reading series and poetry community with over 2,300 members worldwide. Wow. We alternate weekly readings between a live open mic and today's new book showcase. And we occasionally have a special event. Some of you may have joined us last Sunday for our love-filled laureate Love Fest, which was co-sponsored by the Olympia Poetry Network and St. Martin's University. And I want to just give a brief shout out and thank you again to our 11 Poets Laureate who joined us live. From Washington, Claudia Castro Luna; from Maryland, Grace Cavalieri; from Vermont, Char Denord; from California, Charles Flowers; from Alberta, Canada; in Calgary right now, home of the Scotties Women's Curling National Curling Championship going on right now. We had Lisa Mulrooney; from Oregon, Kim Stafford; from Texas, Carmen Tafoya; from Arizona, Laura Tohei; and from joining us from Madison, but who was the former Seattle Youth Poet Laureate. And boy, did she wow us, Azura Tayabji. We had special video performances from U.S. Poets Laureate Ted Kuzer and Joy Harjo. Thanks to the hundreds of you that joined us live. And a recording of that program now resides on the Olympia Poetry Network's website, their YouTube channel, as well as on the Cultivating Voices live poetry feed. We're actually still accepting donations for the Love Fest that will help us fund future programs. So if you care to make the donation, feel free to go to the Olympia Poetry Network's website to donate. Well, now let's turn back to today's fabulous poets. I'll introduce each before they read and then return at the end of our reading with a few announcements about our upcoming readings in the next few weeks. Our first poet today is Marcella Remunnd. Marcella is a native of Omaha, Nebraska, and a South Dakota transplant, where she teaches at the University of South Dakota in Vermilion. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals. The Book of Crooked Prayer won honorable mention in the 2017 Stevens Poetry Manuscript Competition from the National Association of State Poetry Societies, and has now been published from Finishing Line Press. Would you please welcome Marcella Remunnd?
Thank you all very much. And thank you especially to Sandy and Elizabeth and Dawn for holding this space and creating this amazing community of people. It's really just so wonderful to be part of this. I want to give a quick shout out to my brother, Joe Pressure, who is a visual artist from Ohio and who created this illustration on the cover of my book when I asked him for an angel moth. I think he got it right. So I'm going to read a few poems from the Book of Crooked Prayer, and then I want to read a couple newer poems. So one of the things I'm really interested in is the idea of Catholic saints. And I always preface this with the fact that I am not religious myself, but I do consider myself a spiritual person, and I am interested in spiritual ideas. And I love ritual. And so I grew up attending both Catholic Mass and Presbyterian church each Sunday, and developed a sort of love-hate relationship with the Catholic Church, and fell in love with all the ritual. So saints are part of that attraction for me, but I'm really interested in what saints were like as human beings, and how people respond on a really deeply personal level to saints. So I'm going to read a couple of my saint poems. And I should say too that I make up saints. I make my own saints. So this first poem is one of those. And it's called Saint Francis Gum. Most people know that Francis Gum is Judy Garland's real name. And I have been a musician most of my adult life, so I felt like Judy Garland needed to be canonized. So, Saint Francis Gum, patron of girls who need to sing. Saint Francis, 16 lifetimes of loss spilled from you in a voice too big to hold, echoed in the hearts of girls lost on stage, rainbows tattooed on scooped out pelvis or small of back. Nailed each night to a marquee, you lived on spoon-fed hosts dipped in sorrow and sweat, just enough to keep you thin, hungry, dancing at the speed of light. Swaddled in organza and sequins, humiliated and adored, you paved us a golden road into the starlight. You, with hips too big, crooked mouth made perfect in grown-up red, full lips teasing a mic, that stand-in for men who urged you on, filled you to bursting with fairy dust, until broken glass at your throat felt like a kiss. Saint Francis, bring the house lights down to hide my trembling joy. Keep me from back alleys, the bottle, the temptation of dreamless sleep, the bite of a mic's metal on my teeth. Bless me with songs like liquid, songs that pump and clench my heart like a fist, songs that soothe this radiant net of nerves, songs that pulse in my heel bones, cradled in rubies and glitter, clicking for all they're worth. Thank you. This next poem is about a real Catholic saint. And I mentioned in the poem the Sheila McKee, which are archaeological carvings and statues found around Britain and Ireland, and especially over the doorways of buildings. So nobody really knows what their purpose is, but many people think they're to ward off evil. So Saint Dymphna, patron of the mentally ill. Dymphna, in fitful dreams, I find you shivering in rowan and ferns along the Blackwater River, wreathed in St. John's wort and anointed with yellow rattle, half starved and wrapped in a kelter, cinched at the waist with an oak rosary, humming strains of your mother's brief lullaby. But your father was a chieftain and knew the magic, found you anyway. Grief or madness drove him to finger your small bones for signs of her in the curve of your emerging breasts, the winged cup of your pelvis, your silky down, and you, a fugitive child, with courage enough to keep locked that garden gate. Though he found you again, sealed the gate forever. Forsaken daughter, in my own trembling delusion, I am your Sheila McKee. We offer up a novena to our mother, and for 9 days, I give you this blessing too. My stone lap, cushioned with heather and moss, pillow for your bruised and worried brow. And this is another of my own personal saints. This is called Saint William Butler, patron of middle age. Like you, I love to watch the lithe young girls glide along the walk. Their bellies a striptease of what's to come. Their hips, those swinging pendulums of time, breasts like water wicks, or shirtless prancing boys, all undulating muscle, pants sliding down in inverted pyramids, greenwood frames already drying in the sun's kiln. But we, caught between kiln and cane, are wrapped in good hard living. This layer left over from childbearing, that mound a testament to the healing magic of cream and wine, feet splayed from a million miles of chasing the unnameable, breasts already halfway in the ground, muscles gone to folded flesh. In tea shops, we vacillate between dying animal cells and rarefied wings, hovering, weeping between hell and heaven. And this is called Rosary. So I'm really interested in prayer beads, and probably most of you know that almost every enduring religion on the planet has some sort of prayer beads or uses some sort of prayer beads. So I'm really interested in prayer beads, and this is called Rosary. Holy Mary, where are you now? Holy Mary, full of whatever grace we will spare you. Holy Mary, swaddle me in blue linen, cradle my head in your lap. Holy Mary, lift up 10 prayers for me, one for each time the world swallowed me whole. Holy Mary, blessed with a broken heart, I too have sacrificed sons to the crucifying mob. Holy Mary, blessed are your fine white rib bones on black velvet, behind bulletproof glass, a 5-minute peek for only $10 USD. Holy Mary, pray for us weeping penitents who, though blind, see that you are too beautiful, too radiant, brilliant blue light on the cusp of burning itself out. Holy Mary, blessed art thou among mop women, whores, pink foam curlers, women who cut, red lace and whalebone bustiers, women with bruised cheekbones, driving girls to school, uniformed girls who will one day have their own daughters and their own bruised cheekbones. Holy Mary, did you know even then the cord would become a fuse, would set the world on fire, would lead brother, country, state to turn a cold shoulder to brother, country, state, would be the rope we use to hang ourselves, would whip neighbors or armies into jackbooted marches, waving scalpels and embroidered silk bags of eyes and teeth. Holy Mary, this is and always has been the hour of our death. Amen. Thank you. And then I have a couple poems from a new manuscript I'm just finishing. And these are poems about Magdalen laundries in Ireland. This first poem is called Cigarette. Behind the garden shed, in weedy brush near the locked gate, Maureen and Sister Claire share a fag sister squirreled away, cleaning Father Gerald's private rooms. Maureen came to Peacock Lane at 15, sent by her da to hide the shame of her rape, to keep her uncle's name clean as hospital sheets. Claire, born Colleen, betrothed to Christ at 17, blows a neat blue smoke halo. The girls pick tobacco from their teeth, laugh quiet as they can. Claire fans away smoke with her scapular. The rain starts. Maureen whispers, "Want to dance?" She hums Broken Wings, The Two Lock Arms, chants a few close circles. No talk of family, the future or past, in this temporary truce where nothing good can last. Only more ironed aprons, embroidered christening gowns, hothouse days and dreamless nights, nowhere to go but down. And this next poem is called House of God. This is the house of God. If God is Father Peter, cassock jailer, who likes his creases pressed smooth by steamy little girl hands. This God is hell-bent on washing us clean each night in his milk-white blood of Christ. His lieutenant, Sister Timothy, at the door to stop the whores whose sins would go unpunished. This is the house of God who comes in his stocking feet, whose wine stink breath is a moaning wind that rustles the white leaves of cotton nightgowns. This God is our teacher, our refuge, he says. He alone can save us. He teaches the truth of sin, the devil's disguises. His is the only touch we know, the only caress allowed. Father, tormentor, redeemer, his love is human and divine. I lie still and never cry. What does it matter now? What use now, my spoiled heart, crushed under the weight of God? What use now, my ruined body, to Saint Martha or our Blessed Mother? Fingers fused to fins in boiling wash pots will never pray the rosary. And this last poem is called Letter to My Father. I have always had a very fraught relationship with my father. And we have only made our peace now as he's dying. Um, and so this is a poem that took me years and years to write. And it's about that moment when you learn that your parents are human. So, letter to my father. It's 4 a.m, my skin warm against my husband's back, where I curve along his spine, his breathing a chant. I waited a few paltry decades for you, this hole blasted in me where your name echoed, in perfect rhythm with my beating heart. You wouldn't believe the things I've stuffed in there to muffle that sound. Bits of strung out boys, ancient incantations for the dead, a shell-shocked drug dealer, bark from a weeping willow, apologies scribbled in crayon. Do you know how many times I peeled back my skin to show you the color of my blood, the way my lungs held air? Late nights, drunk or stoned, I'd sleep with my ear pressed to the steel tracks, waiting for a sign you were coming back to say something. Then one day you turned in a stab of memory and I saw it, the hole blasted in you. We were only what you stuffed in there, temporary, all those awkward teenage angles, never enough to fill you up or muffle your own dark names. It's quiet now, only a man's breathing, that prayer, that song. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Marcella Remunnd. I really always marvel when I hear your poems. I just marvel at those poems. And reading from the book of Crooked Prayer, one of the final words that you had in your last poem, Prayer. I actually imagine a day when you might take one of the guitars down and play for us. I love the curves of those guitars, how they sit together there. Also, I'll just say, I've been thinking about possibly having a special event, a reading of the Mother and Baby Homes poems with people across Ireland and the US and wherever who've been writing poems, because I know that we know of some people. So if you're interested in us proceeding with that, let's talk. Thank you so very much for that wonderful reading, and congratulations, of course, on your book, which unfortunately is in, no, I have it with me. What am I talking about? I should have taken it out to put it up today. I have it, oh my gosh. All right, you'll forgive me. There it is, the Book of Crooked Prayer. Thank you. Well, our next poet, I had the joy of being able to hear a preview of today's reading as she was reading at the other reading series that I host monthly with Headmistress Press, The Collectibles. Colleen Shoshana McKee is the author of 6 books of poetry, memoir, and fiction. Her most recent poetry chapbook, Routine Blood Work, was a finalist for the Charlotte Mew Award from Headmistress Press. Colleen comes from the middle of the woods in Missouri, but now lives on the coast in Oakland, California, where she is an editor and writing teacher. Please visit her at her website for more information about her writing and her upcoming readings, as well as to her blog, where you can get information on classes that she teaches, as well as the editing work she offers. Would you please welcome Colleen, Shoshana, McKee?
Hi. I'm so pleased to be here. And thank you so much, Sandy and Elizabeth and Dawn, for helping make this event happen today. And Marcella, you are marvelous. And I'm so looking forward to hearing the rest of you. And thank you for the audience coming in. I see people are coming from Missouri and all over, so I really appreciate it. So this is a book of love poems about, half are fictional and about half are not. This one is called I Love You Enough. I love you enough to ask you, when was the last time you washed this carpet? And why won't you take off your boots when I'm off? I love you enough to place your photo on the Frigidaire. I love you enough to wear your band of braided silver. I love you enough to ask you, who is that woman at my kitchen table, nibbling at the muffins I made for you this morning? That woman you were with so very late last night. I see the way the red comes to your cheeks and your neck whenever she laughs, and I love you enough to tell you it's time for her to go. Thank you. So this one is called The Drunk Punk on the Funhouse Pinball Machine. I love playing pinball. I'm really bad at it, and I yell and I kick the machine a lot and jump up and down, even though I'm not really supposed to be jumping up and down. Anyway, this poem is The Drunk Punk on the Funhouse Pinball Machine. And if this is a real game, it's a really bizarre game. If you ever get a chance to play, I recommend it. Fire red globes revolve and lick and light the silver ball that flirts and hides, zigs and zags, slips and is lost in epileptic lights. The cackling machine staticky squeals. Sugar, don't do me like that. Agony tastes like Marlboro Reds, her beery cottonmouth tongue. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? By the creepy baby doll. It's screwed into the board. It twitches and leers, a crack up its cheek. At a well-timed slap of a button. Yes, yes, a perfect yes. Her ball bangs off a flipper, painted with a dancing girl, her skirt up to her ears. Now a mechanical trunk, suddenly part of the game, twists open, sinking her prize, but promising more, and bonus balls pour down like biblical hail. What the fuck? She flails and controls like a sweaty schmuck, while fallen balls rattle and skip around the grumbling bowels of the game, a cacophony that only reminds her of her cute, mean, crazy ex, words that rebound round her skull, ricochet across her heart, sputter inside her stomach. The sounds clatter down her spine. She thrusts her hips, she yanks, hope against hope to get leverage, to manipulate the path of that mercurial sphere. See her shake the machine as though she didn't know gravity was always against her. And as the last ball swallowed whole, all sounds sucked under, a quicksilver whirled down the drain. The game's neon nerves collapsed in shadow. The circus fled. No, no, you son of a no! She sweats and stammers, kicks the machine, and digs in her pockets again. Thank you. This next one is called The Care and Nourishment. The Care and Nourishment of Lies. Water them too little and they dry out. Then spores fill the air, coughing, sneezing like soft splinters up your nose. Water lies too much, their stems snake and snap, carnivorous plants that nibble and rasp at nails, grasp at toes. Lies require darkness, but not enough light, and lies die of vanity. Don't forget to fertilize. Stop your ears with shit. Um, this one is called Maximum Setting. My affections tumble fast in the amped up defective dryer of my mind, sparking with static electricity, mucked and balled with gray lint of doubt, gas blasting machine, mad headed machinations, energy most inefficient, snap banging, zipper slapping drum of desire, churning and chewing buttons and matches, groaning and clanging, splitting seams, spitting quarters, whirring and whirling, rapid cycle lover, melting lipstick and making confetti of ink stained cocktail napkins. All night machine in your hot mouth, nothing ever gets cleaned. And I thank you for the silent applause. um, and this one's called Routine Blood Work. On February 10th, the Post-Dispatch reported that a broken heart actually can kill. Scientists have finally verified what poets have claimed for centuries, that in this poet's shotgun apartment, there will be little rejoicing. Though the note you slipped under my door at dawn when you knew I was up has not quite riven my heart. No, each muscular ventricle continues to predictably pump, and I venture out into the factual world, shoe leather slapping the sidewalk, silken rayon swaying round my hips, lingerie now worn for warmth. I observe the familiar urban ecology, listing reasons to live on the loyal gray paper of my brain. The quiet sparkle of glass and cement, the vermilion, bare stalks of bushes. I recall that these are forsythia. They do not seem so without blooms. The train opens itself to me with mechanical generosity, as it does morning after morning, and deposits me at the hospital, recently hit by a wrecking ball. Half built up and half torn down, acres of rusted, cracked iron beams, torn insulation, dusty glass, tubes that might have kept someone alive. I walk up the stairs, roll up my sleeve. What are a few more drops? Thank you. I see that Sandy was kind enough to put up my blogs. I'm a little bit ashamed to admit that they're not 100% updated. So I'm also going to put up a little bit later a link to my upcoming women's memoir workshop. So I've been having a lot of fun with these women's creative writing workshops. The next poem is called Terminals and Gates. And it has some like airport abbreviations in it. I miss airports. I just miss everything. But yeah, PDX, that's Portland. OHD, that's Chicago. STL, St. Louis, my hometown. I love you in PDX and OHD and STL with K7 written on my thin wrist, with a stomach full of sea and the sound of a fire on my headset, static and a slow piano, with the carpet's blue swirl like the pattern of the ocean and not like the ocean at all. I love you with my family 2,000 miles away. I love you with my body an entire state away. The crumpled map of my dress, the lost and found of my pen, the page instead of a kiss, the scratch of a bright red pen in place of my nails on your back. A song ends, then begins again. I look up, a hall of blue and white numbers as far as I can see. Soon the gate will be open. And Yeah, another kind of long distance one if you might be missing someone far away. Ginkgos. One, we kissed in the grove where ginkgos shook and slanted loose their leaves, bruised gold blessings, papery yet real, catching in your curls my lap, whispering to your wrists, scratching so soft the lines in our palms. This is the currency of heaven. Two, stuff your pockets with schedules, plane tickets, breast feathers, stones from my city. Three, shut the leaf in a book, open me again. Thank you. Um, and this one's called Meditation on the 58 Bus. I allow myself to be seduced by God, though I suspect he cannot be trusted. By seduced, I don't mean a swan, a lightning bolt, or a swarm of coins, but the way spring light sidles up to the white of a tight girl's t-shirt, the liquid gleam on the edge of a dented aluminum can, clinking its windswept path down to Bolivar, the window cracked open, warmth in my hands, closed on my lap, as though I have something to hold on to. And this is the last poem that I wrote in the collection. Thank you. Called Humans Suck, or The Gospel of Rat Fag. And it doesn't, you have to buy the book to get the full explanation of who this rat fag is. But this is a real person. This is a true story. Humans Suck, or The Gospel of Rat Fag. I see the words forgive yourself stenciled 3 times on my street, 40th on my way to the train. I tap them lightly with my cane each morning, hit them heavy, limping home at dusk. Forgive yourself flashes in the streetlights in the rain, reflected in the junction box on the corner of Martin Luther King. Someone stenciled humans suck a few times on 40th. Probably someone else. Humans suck is smudged, glopped in what looks to be blistering tar, bubbled up from some Oakland hellmouth. I like the two together. Forgive yourself because you're human. Humans suck. Forgive yourself is faded. Humans suck more steadfast despite the angry smear. But I see forgive burnished on the sidewalk, faint as old nickels and pennies. It shows up better in the rain. I see the words I need at my feet. 2. This isn't the first time. 9 years ago, just before I left St. Louis, someone wrote forgive yourself, small brushed green, on a gutter on South Grand, around the corner from where we lived. First saw it one frigid dawn on the way to the bus. It was a few months after my best friend killed herself. All through the ice, the long thaw, the brief spring, forgive yourself multiplied. The words, bigger, blacker, sprayed at eye level on stolid brick buildings along South Grand. I still saw my sweetheart's sexy ghost strutting down Grand and striped bell-bottoms, smoking and giving me the stink eye, sometimes just sticking out her tongue. One summer dusk looming over the highway, 7 stories up and 10 feet tall. Forgive yourself, outlined in gold, bold on a gutted warehouse, a swaying thing of splinters, more wind than wood, teetering over the Mississippi. Who risked their lives to write it? Every time I see these words, small or monumental, I do forgive myself, if only for that moment, and bless the ones who needed to write it and did. I can walk these cracked and crumbling cities knowing someone is blessing us all, every wretched one of us, no matter what we've done or failed to do. Thank you.
What a great Oh, what a great reading.
Thank you
Would
so
you would you put up the cover of Routine Blood
Yeah,
Work
I
for
got really
people
lucky. Look at this
to
was
see it?
amazing
I
art
love
by
that
this
cover.
British artist named Gemma. Yeah, I got really lucky with them. All of my book covers.
It's so great. And you know, I wanna say what you'll see in the chat, what I really so appreciate and everyone was appreciating is, you know, that razor thin line of humor and poignancy. Humor and poignancy
Thank you.
that really just, you know, just ran through those poems. And back to the pinball poem, I don't know if you can hear it, but it might sound a little bit like a pinball machine, is my chiming heart.
Yeah,
Just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit.
I think my heart sounds like a pinball machine too.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen, Shoshana, McKee. Until next time, be well. Great reading. Folks, buy the books, support the presses, support the poets, support poetry. Yeah, if you have the resources, please invest in at least one collection today. We're here for our new book showcase and our next poet. You know, I get kind of choked up when I think about that. Week after week, poet after poet comes to these little Zoom boxes to read. And our next poet, Dawad Philip, is joining us from Trinidad. So I'm so appreciative. Yeah, I'm just so grateful for the poets. Well, a little bit about our dear friend. Dawad Philip is the author of 3 books of poetry, most recently City Twilight 2020 and A Mural by the Sea 2018 from Anaphora Press. Dawad's poems have appeared in Tribes, Stepping Stones, Bomb, Caribbean Voices, Poetry International, Past Simple, Voicing Our Vision, and New Rain. A New York State Fellowship on the Arts recipient for poetry, Dawad has read from his works in the Caribbean, the United States, Canada, Riga, Latvia, and Moscow and St. Petersburg. He holds a Master of Arts in Carnival Arts degree from the University of Trinidad and Tobago and keeps an active hand in the annual carnival as a costume designer and builder. After living and working in Brooklyn for nearly 4 decades as a poet, journalist, and editor and artist, Philip has resettled in his hometown of San Fernando, Trinidad, where he is currently writing a book, The History of the Carnival in the city of San Fernando. A Mural by the Sea 2018, a film by the late Trinidadian playwright filmmaker Tony Hall, is based on his poetry. And a new volume of poems, The Painted Bulls, is scheduled for the fall of 2021. Make sure that you please return for another new book showcase. Please welcome a carnival all to himself, Dawad Philip.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Well, wasn't much of a carnival we had this year.
No.
Because, you know, everybody, you know, even though folks got very creative and found ways to express what that spirit dictates, you know, so people wore costumes into the office and walk the streets in their costumes, you know, at a safe distance. So carnival arts have been suspended for all of us in 2021. We hopefully get back there next year. So thanks for having me. I read the first poem is The Blue Coronet, and it's from Mervyn Taylor and Keith Louis. Sonny sat on a stool at the edge of the stage, hunched, 1 foot off the chessboard tiled floor at the Blue Coronet in Bed-Stuy. Nodded side to side, pockets hung low, horn astride, tam with a star, giant of a man. When the bassist nudged him, Sonny Stitt rose to his feet, lifted his horn and testified, "They can't take that away from me." Many moons ago, on a freezing night with eyes and ears for a lead on a slow news day, and flash bulbs popping on a race from copy to the hot press, to newsstands, ink wet on the bundles, was the night Miles Davis was shot, leaving the Blue Coronet, the hitmen with their call cards left behind. We got there just in time at Club 555, the Baby Grand, Big Mabel, the Brooklyn Apollo, Otis, Carla, and the Barkeys at the Lefferts. 5 stair steps at the Albee, oh child. And things did get easier, got brighter as we walked in the rays of a beautiful sun. And the light of Sparrow and the light of the Troubadours, light of Byron Lee and the Dragonaires, the Hotel St. George, the East over on Claver, Pharaoh and Sun Ra, lifting off for brighter galaxies, Leon Thomas yodeling through a cosmos of oils and incense. The map of light we followed led crosstown to tributaries, urban canyons, the A train rumbling under dust kicking up from the grid, women knowing when to hold their skirts. The shuttle screeching overhead, last stop, Franklin Avenue, 1 flight up a storefront near Arlington and Fulton. Edward English sat clutching a canvas bag of poems written on the long walk from Alabama to the Sahara, and the artist Nat Pickney is back against the light of 4 tall windows, painted a blue portrait of the vagabond poet. When the lunch hour whistle blew at Sonar Radio Corporation on Wortman Avenue, Harry Schwartz would pop a can of tuna, dig in with a box of saltines, his magnifying glass pouring through odds and handicaps, weights and jockeys at Aqueduct and Saratoga, the sports pages of the news. Friday night beer fest at the Schaefer Brewery in Williamsburg by the pitcher for $1. A diet of aluminum from too many TV dinners and asbestos in the pores of factories and shipyards, years since an address in Brooklyn turned out to be a barber shop, long gone like the Blue Coronet, like Sonny's Bebop. No, they can't take that away from me. Thank you. The Blonde Conductor. It's a train, I'm on a train, a midnight train, not to Georgia, but from St. Petersburg to Latvia. The Blonde Conductor. On the train from St. Petersburg to Riga, 1 night's journey. The blonde conductor comes down the aisles with her silver pocket watch and ticket punch. The voice of Joe Williams filters from the speakers in the ceiling. and the bassy band swings into the waiting night. Because it is St. Petersburg, my heart echoes Zhivago, the docile eyes of Omar Sharif as his train pulls away. The blonde conductor has accused me of stealing a silver spoon from her tea service and billed me for its replacement. By morning, I find the teaspoon lodged between cushions. Ah, my Soviet souvenir. At the Hotel Riga in Latvia, an island passport raises a fuss. The concierge back and forth, glancing nervously my way. I expect at any moment to see the conductor step from behind a curtain, her finger pointing dead at me. I am hoping only there is an atlas somewhere, a magnifying glass to point, see, right here. I am ushered up to the penthouse and everyone smiling as I go. The next morning, a class of Latvian children are gathered in the lobby to meet the man from Tobago, the island where we Courlanders once ruled, and we bragged for a brief time. And I wonder what difference it would make if I rushed down to the station waving the spoon, though I know the train and conductor are long gone. New poem, I got a challenge from Susanna. So here's a poem called The Milliner's Hat. I used to have a boyhood friend, a childhood friend, a Jewish boy named Norman. He came from a family of milliners who fled Germany and ended up on my block in San Fernando. His quiet mother with a soft smile, a father who said less, and an uncle with whom his dad ran the millinery. Women, stitches from the lane, would cross the promenade and go briskly down the arcade where the hats were made and sold to major stores, fashioned in grand styles seen in newsreels that ran with a feature. A woman with Marilyn Monroe lips waiting on a train wearing one. Norm's uncle leaning over the banister in his hat that made him look like George Raft. An only child, Norman, favored that uncle, who stood at the top of his stairs one afternoon in 1960, holding up the headline of the evening news, Eichmann captured, nabbed in Argentina. When I saw the face of the man in the story, I felt Norman's uncle with his George Raft hat could easily star as Eichmann himself, the beast from whom the family fled, if a movie was ever made. If the real George Raft was dropping off a wrapped fish as a favor for a pal, or spinning a woman with curves like Marilyn Monroe in a bolero. My friend was allowed no friend but me to wear the feather of fealty in our games, the depth of the well in his uncle's eyes, the news like a slab of stone over his head. The world is in turmoil, and in Trinidad we have our own challenges. Some of you may know that Trinidad is next door to Venezuela, and it's a short trip by boat, and you know there's a problem with porous borders to contain that, so there won't be any wall built. But the sea, the channel, down Queenham, a small boat sputters under the weight of cargo, human, exotic birds, monkey, and iguana, bailing as they come with guns and ammunition to barter for toilet paper and cooking oil. A man looks back for his wife on the other boat, for any sign in the open channel, the dome of the lighthouse swallowed into the sea. Coconut treetops half a mile out, a girl points to a cluster of stumps where a chunk of the island has sunk. Her legs shiny with coconut oil, her skin like a mermaid's. Il passaggio della morte, passage of death. At the French-Italian border, a tarpaulin tied to a tree is a soft-sided structure, jupote, the holding pen for Africans who sailed by way of an old Moorish map, Tunis to Genoa, Nice on the French side. At the checkpoint corralled by les gendarmes, they lay face down without food or water. Sneakers cut away, cell phones and SIM cards confiscated. They are sent barefoot over the cold mountain. COVID-19 brought it home how we drew level, borderless and barefooted against a terror neither boot nor bullet could crush. Who stood guard at Lombardy when the virus came? Who in Wuhan City, in Madrid, in New York, in Tulsa, in Tehran? Where was the Ayatollah against this infidel? COVID is her name, and her kiss is turning lungs to glass. She seduces you. Come. She's daring les gendarmes. Throw a banana. The man from the window with his bullhorn, the girl with the cello on the balcony, the crowded plaza when the Cubans came, the young doctor from Havana, a doppelganger for the boy who had his barefoot army over the cold mountain. And I think my final poem, yeah. The hunt. Up in the balata tree, a troop of monkeys, in the face of trespass and camouflage, raise their voices in outrage. As the hunters approach, a black-haired manitou runs the night track, and another stands ground, staring straight at the hunter's gun. The female with her swollen pouch, cornered, pleads for her unborn. No sooner she falls, is gutted, her innards fed to the dogs, testicles from a jack stuffed into the cavity of the jill, and sold at market as male. On the other side of the pond, a sound of wild hog ponder, this fated sap weeps from a chop deep in the balata tree. Snow, the white razorback with blue eyes, her tail bitten off in a fight with a rabid manitou, follows the smell of blood and death down a trail. Her howl, filling the night, she stands guard at the hole where she has eaten a litter of 10. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dawad Philip. You know, every time I hear you read, like your poetry just gets more prismatic in my mind, like just where we travel with you. Extraordinary. I have to say that I have a penchant for the Carnival because I love Coney Island, and so I'm looking forward to that book about Carnival. And also, I don't know if it's true. I put in the chat, I've taken the train from Moscow to St. Petersburg, the overnight train once, and almost the same exact thing happened. Like the conductor, like there was a whole possible theft thing going on. I don't know what it is. Like, is it like theater on the train? I don't know. Interesting. So, and of course, I wrote a poem about it. So maybe I'll read it sometime in honor of you and your poem. Thank you. And we look forward to your next book too. So please come back, schedule with us. Always a pleasure. My friends, it always goes so quickly. I could obviously I could listen to each of these poets for much longer, but we love to showcase as many people as possible, to give you a full, like a full-bodied flavor of their work, to encourage you to go out and purchase their work. And I also love the alchemy of the poets, in proximity to each other. So without further ado, let's move to our final poet for today. I've been really thrilled. I've been spending some time in New Mexico, but I've yet to have met Lauren Camp in person. We're also on a few of the social media sites together. So I'm so thrilled to finally be virtually face to face today. Lauren Camp is the author of 5 books. Most recently, Took House from Tupelo Press. Her poems have appeared in Witness, Poet Lore, New England Review, Poetry International, and other journals in the US and abroad. A Black Earth Institute Fellow, Lauren is also the winner of a Dorset Prize and a finalist for the Arab American Book Award and the New Mexico, Arizona Book Award. Her poems have been translated into Mandarin, Turkish, Spanish, and Arabic. And of course, I'll be putting in the chat the link to her new book from Tupelo Press, Took House. Would you please welcome Lauren Camp?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dawad, Colleen, and Marcella, for your beautiful readings, your voices and perspectives that go together and take us in different directions. And thank you, Sandy and Dawn and Elizabeth, for organizing us together. What a pleasure to be here, to be listening, to be participating. And thank you, everyone who's come out at whatever time of day this is, wherever you are. I'm going to do something that I very rarely do and start with a brand new poem. And then I'm going to switch over and read to you from Took House. My 29th year. I used to be part of a group of women who hived every Tuesday, passing small explanations of anything but America between them. Dogs touched the ground. They were older, nested, and done with life's jostled questions. I drove an hour, the sun branching my face through the dashboard, to listen to the loafing of jasmine and the women who tended their ease. I remember they wore sweaters with ribbons. We went in and out with our needles. The silver settings gushed light on doilied tea tables. The houses fringed in precise shrubs. You'd think I would be bored, pressed inside such careful, affable people. But I dwelled in that and learned parked ritual, such this and that and systematic time for every sort of slowing. Though, yes, I always drove off fast, tires slapping asphalt like horses, rushing through wind wreck to a shelter where I hadn't yet erased suggestions of children, where I only knew perfectly happy. Week after week, I drove to the women, each wheel rounding ground with its schemes, my one self never thinking about the roots or the field we all get to, just getting there, just going a while. Thank you. It's hard to read a new poem, so I appreciate seeing your reactions. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to read to you from Took House, and I'm going to hold up the book so you can see the cover because I too really love my book cover. The book is called Took House. It came out in August, so it's not brand new anymore, but it still feels very new. I think the poems need either a lot of explanation or none, so I'm going to jump right in and give you none and see how you take it. I'm going to start with the first poem, Appetite. And now in the useless unceasing, there is a heart in one part of town where there is a table that is most like a cliff, a place for few potentials. Will offer what she asks. In that room or the next is an intimate slowing where the woman put down her shield and took out her heart. She put it on the table and looked at the table under the eye of everything that could go wrong, everything that did, each direct chance and the taking of it. Now she tries to explain the way the past wouldn't finish, that the heart was a stipulation, the shade of her hunger, his palm on her marrow. It is the largest muscle, and she let it take over. She let it. A glass. We never discuss, but right there, while I am hankering for a glass, he is drinking 5 with his insignificant mouth. We are moving toward linger, longer reminded of an instant uttered again. Hush again. Wild strawberry had been rising from rocky places. On the street, small boys in red. Above them on poles, some crows. A delphinium, a bartender 100 times. Failed to joy, I fell a year. No one saw my blurs and constellations. A swirl of streets slurred to summer rain. How many slants of light in the intimate alphabet? I knew them all. Looking back, 2 chairs and thirsty people, small leftover goals. My tongue still willing to tongue whatever words. Thank you. So the book has a main storyline, which is basically a relationship. You've heard a few poems from that. It also has 2 other components that feed into the book. There are poems of raptors. I live in the high desert of New Mexico, and there are poems of the birds of prey that I see around in the vicinity. And there are also ekphrastic poems. And these 2 poems, there's about a half dozen of one and 8 or 9 of the other. These two different components either give a break from the relationship poems or feed into it, or both, depending perhaps on what you need. So I'm going to read you one of each of the 2 other poems, starting with a raptor poem, Sharp-Shinned Hawk. Days are barely at 0. Take wind shear as the palace, pleasure layer, depth. The bird raises its head from a chest soft with down. From above the land is scars, sown with narrow eyes. Steady, steady. It swerves and lurks in hackberry, soapberry, mesquite, as if one could ride a sun to luck. One does. Behold, between flaps and gliding, it nests inside some tighter aspen branches. Eats first crickets as small delicacy, before its centered eyes triangulate on songbirds, sparrow, thrush in gentle grass. Bounty, bounty, bounty. Thank you. So ekphrastic poems. I came to poetry through a career as a visual artist. I love writing about the arts. I like writing through the center of the artist's process as I figure it, imagine it. I like writing about what I see or what I don't see, or what the artist might have been deciding to do in making that artwork, why that artwork, that medium. So this is inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe from a 1949 painting called Black Place, Gray and Pink. And my poem is very short. It's called Black Place. I sit between black lava and ash, dust brushed and shaken amid suggestion of bone. In the curve of the place without sky, rose-lipped clouds, first grinding of pigment and palette, knife, broken pastel, 1,000 forms of time. Quench. What I never needed folded out before me on a table by the bar. Sometimes we never stopped sitting. We sat detached or wrapped in the hush under the low yellow vocation of light and pronounced swallows with a rigor of sinking. We wasted whatever we could of the day, and the prized light made me more peachy. I was promised to him. I was ear and action. He could have where we sat. But right now he was clasped in the maze of drops on his tongue and waiting for seas to release. He needed this more than me and wiped his lips with what he preferred. He needed each trace taken up. The man bent his body toward the glass and he chewed on the liquid and counted as the liquid crowded inside until it became the map of his simple, his heaven. I began Took House in 2005. It has been such a long journey to get it to okay. It's been such a long journey to get it until it felt finished to me, and then to put it out and to go through the publishing process. So it's incredibly familiar and also defamiliarized to hold the book in my hands finally after all these years, and a lot of poems that I trashed, started over, tried to find some new story. And so I started with the beginning poem, and I'm going to finish this book with the last poem, and then I'm going to read you two more poems. Homeostasis, Autumn. A day that stayed in place, inaudible from dawn to the strike of evening. Enough time to rest and plunge back across the pebbles to my pens and desk. A squash we didn't plant has come in gold across the aspen roots. Two hawks burst over, claiming a rotating sky. The desert, normally dry, emits a faint scent, the damp wisp of cedar. Water has gathered in holes we dug. This is why the pangs of time are necessary. To the east, mountains bracket the distance, releasing their images silver on blue. The whole day has nearly disappeared, and night is a ruffle about to blossom. Thank you. Thank you. I had a heck of a hard time figuring out what I wanted to read for this whole thing, and I started feeling bad for my fourth book. Oh, it sounds ridiculous, but the book that came before Took House. So I thought I would read you one poem from here, and then a final another new poem. My fourth book is called Turquoise Door. It's a love story, a love book to New Mexico, a place that I've been now for about 26 years. I adore it here. I find it completely mesmerizing and inspirational, and I guess I'll probably always write love books to New Mexico. But anyway, I thought I'd read you one of the poems from this book. The poem is called Today and Other Flowers. Today I sat with a woman who thinks without future. Her house holds first and last things. In a bowl, globes of grape, pale as elm leaves. In another, a scatter of nuts that don't touch. She eats like a prophet, first one, then the other. Once she painted the undulant, threshed fields, the thickening river 2 miles off. Her brushes discovered the inside of landscape. Now her skin's gone thin and violet, and her eyes hold caves. She doesn't know me. What she doesn't know isn't tragic. She's fallen through, but her hands want to be moving. She sits in her crowded house with her German shepherds. She sits in her blue pants with a cane by her side. Through the many tall windows, she sees a sky drowning in blue, sees pines wrinkled in heat. It is afternoon, and still is. Afternoon daisies. From her, I learn the koan of looking. From her, I learn the koan of looking. Open-throated Southwest pots, buff, white, and black, cluster in the kitchen. She asks me a question studded with ending and beginning. She's concentrating. No deviation in the sheen of her thoughts. She asks and repeats her question with the logic of what's not important, with pieces of asking. She's lived here for decades. The days drift through her and bloom into night. She asks again where I'm going. To the unfolding water, I tell her. Her soft hands play with a purple pencil. She does not latch her thoughts. She looks out at the interior wall of the sky, the endless distance. Together, we notice the birds that fly to the feeder, their silent conversations as they work on seed shells. This is why we have shadow and yellow, why red-winged blackbirds, why we have windows, why trees knot at the river, and why the river turns around, suddenly deciding to run off again, wherever its memory pleases. Thank you. All right, Sandy, do I have time to read one more? Okay. I timed it, but you never know. Okay, this last poem is also new. For me, it takes a lot of bravery to read something new, I think, because I revise a lot. And so new is always a moving target, I think. But the poem is called Metamorphic, and it takes place within this crazy and tragic pandemic. Metamorphic. Now into desert sever or vanishing, into wind quivers as they work quick on months and news. I keep moving through the secret banquet of outskirts, past gold-sheeted orioles with their interludes. Bitter caution is all neighbors offer these days, all their hinges and deep-sealed windows. Never mind the overloaded vows that anciently tethered familias upturned already so much to anger. I live in a small valley, traveled with juniper that gives practice to horsemen and wrinkles and verses of a lingual acequia. Its water swells and balms through a safe wound by the road every Tuesday and Sunday, then washes out. It ends long before the trailers, leaves a brown dust fixed in the pond, ducks beside poplars. Because I walk bundled, I see it, unmound to angles. I've even seen cranes on the opposite edge, and this opens me, pulls me off from detachment. The recuperating pond shoulders a house on the corner, asleep even to what's been taken. I walk beside which direction it has gone, and tomorrow it fills again, ready to be ready. I'm playing my arms to the wind wherever I want to be touched, and further I am thinking with my heart like I know how to weep with my mind. When the thought comes that someday I can't and won't fit my eye here again, I reverse the blankness, suckle the drought, call it merciful, and go home, my home, so full of good dormant odors. Because I want to have little else to do, I listen to the mountain unfinish its shape, though it stays contagious to juniper. It's almost my birthday, and the freeway makes its broad sound of going as clear to me as ending. The future is a purpose I stop beginning. I might have finally given up need, or maybe full on the latest episode of Bewildered Intimacy. Yesterday, I bought boots, and tomorrow I'll trample some fields below tendered clouds. Here, this is one of my photos of hiding. Thank you. You're getting good use out of that heart.
I am getting a lot of good use today out of my little chiming heart, my friends. Thank you, Lauren. The precision of your vision and voice in your poems was just, it was arresting to me, like absolutely mesmerizing. And also, my book took 21 years to publication, my debut collection. And I think maybe we should, if you go to AWP, maybe we should like do a panel for books that take a long time to publication and what it's like to then be with them in the world.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk. My friends, I as said at the beginning in the pre-show, something like that. It's about alchemy. Like I'm always trying to create some alchemy, and I felt like our four poets today: Marcella Remunnd, Colleen, Shoshana, McKee, Dawad Philip, and Lauren Camp. You were each like the side of a perfect square. Like it created like this amazing shape, like of perfection of poetry, and so prismatic and so different, and yet just really so exquisite. Thank you all, and congratulations on your books. um, you know, may they live on well and a long time, um, and until we hear more of your visions and voices. Wow. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And thanks, of course, as always, to Don Krieger, who is behind the scenes, making it all work. Just so dedicated every single week. To my co-founder, my sister, Elizabeth Ann. And as a reminder, as we close out February, that next week we will be closing February out with a celebration of Black Lives Matter and Black History Month. As I like to say, I choose these things deliberately because so many places begin the month with the celebration, and I want to propel the celebration forward, to spill outside of the month, to not it just be in that square of the month. Well, we will be celebrating Black Lives Matter and Black History Month, featuring 5 poets: Gary Lilly, Tamara J. Madison, Martina McGowan, Lauren Russell, and Dee Allen, along with those of you who would like to follow and read in our live open mic, about 3 minutes for each of you, a poem of your own or of a Black poet you admire, living in person or in memory. Arrive at 11:45 Pacific time for our pre-show to sign up for the live open mic. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back on Sunday, March 7th, with our live poetry open mic to celebrate the opening of Women's History Month. And it's International Women's Day Eve on March 7th. International Women's Day is March 8th. So join us on March 7th for that reading. Well, my friends, that's it for today, tonight, wherever you are. I'll be back next Sunday, of course, and I look forward to bringing you more poetry from around the world, from my little seaside nook here in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, snowy Old Saybrook, Connecticut. My friends, that's it for me, Sandy Yannone, author of Boats for Women, Salmon Poetry. Ahoy.
Thank you, Andy.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
And keep writing, everyone.
Thank you.